Hello everyone, I'm JG and welcome back to Music Forever, where today I'm bringing you guys a brand new track review video ready to talk about and review several recently released songs that I happen to hear and have some opinions on. You guys know the drill by this point, so I'm just going to get right into things with the first song I want to talk about here today, this new track from Open Mike Eagle, The Edge of New Clothes. This song is going to be appearing on this upcoming compilation record that Anthony Fantano of the Needle Drop, fellow music reviewer, YouTuber, you probably know of him if you watch my channel, considering he essentially does what I do, just on a bigger scale, I guess you could say. He's doing this charity vinyl compilation release. It's also going to be released digitally, I should say, as well, including this track already. And this song by Open Mike Eagle is appearing on this compilation. And overall, I think this is a pretty good track. In fact, I even go as far as to say this is a pretty great track from Open Mike Eagle. Overall, I think that the flow present here on this track, as well as the lyrics to this song, are pretty great. I also really, enjoy the fact that the hook here on this track is not only, lyrically strong, I guess you could say, but it's also pretty catchy too. And I think Open Mike Eagle's performance during this hook is one that's pretty captivating as well. I really like the instrumental to this track as well. I think it complements Open Mike Eagle really nicely. I think it complements the tone of the lyrics really nicely too. If I had any complaints with this track, it would be that overall I do kind of feel like this song runs maybe a little bit shorter than what I would like. Like, I easily feel like there could have been another verse added onto this track just to extend it out a bit longer, because what we get here in this song is so good, but at the same time I just feel like maybe they could have done a little more with it. But overall, that's a pretty small complaint. And, especially considering the fact that my biggest complaint with this thing is that I wish there was more of it, that speaks pretty highly of what we actually do get here. So, overall, definitely give this track a listen. Next up, I'm going to be talking about this new single from Jimmy Eat World, All the Way Stay. This is the lead single that the band has dropped from their upcoming studio album that's set to come out next month. And I like myself some Jimmy Eat World, so I checked this out. And overall, I think this is a pretty enjoyable track. I wouldn't quite say that it's a great song. However, I think there's just enough going on here in this track to be interesting to listen to. The vocal performance here on this track is one that's pretty great. I think the song overall is pretty catchy. The lyrics really aren't anything all that special, but I think the delivery of them makes up for it to some extent. I think the instrumental to this track is one that's pretty decent too. I love the sound of the guitars here on this track and the weight that they carry here in the song. Just some of these riffs just sound really nice on the ears. I will say that the composition of, the instrumental, how it all comes together, isn't anything that for the most part is really all that special. I do kind of like some of the saxophone sounds that come towards the end of this song, or at least I think it's a saxophone towards the end of this thing. I thought it was a nice change of pace compared to the rest of the instrumental, and it just complemented the rest of the song really nicely. I kind of wish that the band had taken advantage of that a bit more in the rest of this song, because while I do, as I mentioned previously, enjoy a lot of the guitar parts here in this instrumental, I do still think that just compositionally and sonically, it is kind of typical for the band to some extent. There's not really anything super new here on this instrumental. Overall, I think the ending of the instrumental with that saxophone part is probably the strongest part of the instrumental, and maybe even just the track as a whole. But the rest of the instrumental is just kind of decent, I guess. It's not bad by any means. I don't want to make it seem like it is. It's just not super standout or anything. And that's probably what I would say about this track as a whole. It's enjoyable to listen to. There's a lot to enjoy here in this song, from the vocal performance to some of the aspects of the instrumental. It's just that as a whole, it's nothing that is super, standout really. There's just enough going on here in this track to be worth a listen, but whether or not you come back to it for even more listens, I guess, is more up to you. So, yeah, give this track a listen if you're a fan of the band. I think it's at least worth hearing once, because there are, aspects to this track that I enjoy, and I'm excited to see what the band is going to do on their upcoming record next month. And finally, the last track I want to talk about here today comes from Danny Brown, his new track, Best Life, from his upcoming record, set to come out in about a week or so. I'm really excited for that project. I like the first single that he dropped from it, and I think that this second single here is another solid one. I don't think I like it quite as much as the first single he dropped a few weeks back, but I think this new song here is still really enjoyable. One thing that stands out to me, probably the most in this song, and also on the last single he dropped, is that in terms of the tone of these tracks, they're a bit more upbeat, I guess you could say, compared to what he was doing on Atrocity Exhibition, which kind of has me thinking that this new record of his is going to be a bit more upbeat and happy sounding. I mean, we've only gotten 2 tracks, so maybe these just happen to be the 2 most upbeat, but based on this song here, I think it's very likely that his new record will be one that's a lot more positive sounding than Atrocity Exhibition, which should be interesting to see because the really dark nature of that album was one thing I really loved about it, but I was kind of hoping Danny Brown was going to switch things up on his new release, and it kind of seems like that's going to be the case here. But enough of that. When it comes to this song itself, I think it's one that's pretty enjoyable, as I said before. I like Danny Brown's flows here on this track. I kind of like the fact that in the first verse of this track, the sound of his voice is like kind of this mixture between, the typical cartoonish, over-the-top voice that he tends to do in his music and his, actual, natural rapping voice. It kind of sounds like, something in the middle between those two, with him kind of fluctuating back and forth between those 2 styles. It's really interesting to hear, and I think it makes this verse a bit interesting. As the song progresses, he does tend to stick more to his kind of crazy, off-the-wall sounding voice, which isn't a bad thing by any means, because I do really enjoy the very cartoonish nature of that voice that he does. And I think especially when you pair it with the really upbeat sound of this track, it makes something that's really fun to listen to and enjoyable. Lyrically here on this track, you have Danny talking about his past, his come up to some extent, and also about how he's essentially going to live his best life now because he's not going to have a chance for another life in the future or anything along those lines. Overall, a pretty simple song topic, but I think the execution of it here is nice enough, and I think Danny Brown manages to pull together enough interesting little tidbits about himself in his own personal life, as well as just inject this song topic with a lot of his own personality to the point where it still manages to be interesting and not anything super redundant. The instrumental to this track, as I alluded to before, is one that's a lot more upbeat compared to a lot of the noisier, darker beats from Atrocity Exhibition. I like this twist, though, as I also said before, and I think the way that Danny's rapping over this beat mixed together with the subject matter of this track, overall I think it all comes together into a very nice package. I think the tone of this track is one that's very consistent when it comes to the sound of the instrumental and what's being talked about and the way that everything's being delivered. Overall, this is just a pretty solid Danny Brown track. I don't think I like it quite as much as Dirty Laundry or, even, a lot of my other favorite songs of his, but I still think this is a really solid, song, and I think this upcoming record of his has the potential to be another great release. So, yeah, I'm really excited for it. Definitely check this song out if you haven't done so already. But with that said, that concludes today's track review. This is all just my own personal opinion, so if you happen to disagree with any of my opinions on either of these songs that I've covered today, that's perfectly fine. In fact, feel free to leave your own thoughts on these songs in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, make sure you also leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for more music-related content, things like album reviews, track reviews, things of that sort. I will definitely be reviewing all of the upcoming records that I've kind of talked about here today that these songs are going to be appearing on. So if you want to see my thoughts on these albums, make sure you subscribe for sure. October is looking like a pretty busy month for album releases, at least for me. So this should definitely be an interesting couple of upcoming weeks, at least till we get through October when it comes to all these albums coming out. But I'm going to try my hardest to make sure I review all these albums that I've kind of alluded to here today in one way or another. But yeah, thank you guys for watching this video once again, and stay golden.